Welcome back, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to connect and how to set up your Raspberry Pi Pico W. Here I have a micro USB cable, so you will need a micro USB cable, a Raspberry Pi Pico W, or a Pico would work fine as well, depending on what you want to work on. And you're obviously going to need a PC as well. This can be a Windows, Mac, or Linux PC. Anything will work. Let's go. The plan for this video is to show you how to get MicroPython for the Raspberry Pi Pico W, and also how to get CircuitPython for the Raspberry Pi Pico W. So first things first, let's go with MicroPython. Obviously, you'll need the Raspberry Pi Pico W. This is a Pico 2W, so that's going to be for a separate video. You're going to need the Raspberry Pi Pico W and the micro USB cable. Step one, you go to Google and you simply type in Pico W UF2 MicroPython. You probably don't need to type all of this, but type something along those lines and you will come up with the very first page that says Pico W MicroPython, Python for microcontrollers. So I'm going to click on that page there and you're going to scroll down to where it says firmware. Under the firmware heading, you're going to see something that says latest next to the most recent one. So this was the 29th of November 2024. I'm going to click on that to download it. And if I go to my downloads folder quickly, let me drag this across to the screen. So this is my file here. To have this running MicroPython, I simply need to transfer this file to the Raspberry Pi Pico W. So to do that, I'm going to plug in my micro USB cable to the Raspberry Pi Pico W. So plug in there, and the other end I'm going to plug into my PC. However, the way you plug this in is not the normal way. You have to press and hold the button on the Raspberry Pi Pico W. So there's only a single button there. That's that tiny white button there. I'm going to press and hold that button down while I plug this cable into my PC. So I'm pressing and holding that button down. I'm going to plug this into my PC and you should hear a PC or a Windows connection sound. There we go. Once you've heard that sound, that tells you straight away that this is now connected and it's in the firmware mode or download mode. On my screen, this window here popped up, which simply will allow me to drag and drop this across or copy and paste it across. So to drag and drop it across, to tell your Raspberry Pi Pico W to use MicroPython as its main language, you're going to click and hold down on this icon here. Then you're going to drag it across and let go. Some people prefer to copy and paste. Any method you use is going to be exactly the same. To copy on Windows 11, you can click on it once and there's a copy icon here, or you can simply right click on it and then go down to this copy icon here. Then I'm going to come over to the Raspberry Pi Pico W. I'm going to right click and simply choose the paste option. Once I paste this, it's going to copy this file from my normal PC onto the Raspberry Pi Pico W. Then it's going to close the window. It should make a Windows disconnection sound and then that will tell me everything has been done. So I'm going to click paste and see what happens. It's 1.64 megabytes. So transferring. Perfect. That was my Windows disconnection sound, and also the window for the Raspberry Pi Pico W closed. So it disconnected it, closed the window. Now this is able to run MicroPython on the Raspberry Pi Pico W. Step 2, the easiest way I've found to get this working really quickly is to use an IDE. So that's an integrated development environment called Thonny. Thonny is completely free. You can use it for as long as you want. So if you go to Google again and you type in download Thonny, Thonny, I'll put the links in the description. You can click on here and you can go ahead and install whichever version you have. So for me, I have Windows, but I already have this installed. I would simply click on the first one that says installer with 64-bit Python 3.10. That's good enough. Even though there's Python 3.13 out now, most people won't need it. You probably won't see the differences. If you have a Mac, you go to the Mac option and you follow the instructions there. And if you have Linux, you do exactly the same thing. Follow the instructions there. Once you have Thonny open, the only thing you need to do is to come down here to the very bottom right-hand corner of the Raspberry Pi Pico W. You simply click on that link or that icon there that says local Python 3. From the list that pops up, local Python is going to be the default. So that's going to be what your computer is running all the time. Don't worry about mine saying Python 3.13.1. It's simply because I manually install Python and manually install Thonny. So from the list that comes up, you're going to want to select the second option that says MicroPython. You click on it. It should refresh the IDE with the Raspberry Pi Pico W stuff and the MicroPython stuff as well. So to test this out, I'm going to type print at the very top and I'm going to type hello world. Once I've done hello world, or any text you want to add in here is perfectly fine. I'm simply going to click on play here or run. Once I click on run, I get my results down here. That tells me that the Raspberry Pi Pico W is working perfectly fine. It can now work with MicroPython. The next thing for us to do is to try and make use of CircuitPython. Now, CircuitPython again will work on the Raspberry Pi Pico W. It's going to be a different implementation of Python for microcontrollers. So again, I'm going to go ahead and Google Pico W. So you must do the W, because if you don't do the W, this doesn't tell you that this is a Wi-Fi version. And the firmware for the non-Wi-Fi version should be slightly different for the firmware for the Wi-Fi version. So again, I simply typed in Pico W UF2 CircuitPython. I'll put all the links in the description below. I'm going to press and hold that single button on my Raspberry Pi Pico W again. Then I'm going to plug this into my PC and you should hear the connection sound once more. Perfect. That window pops up that tells me that this is in the firmware mode or the download mode where I am allowed to update the firmware. I'm going to click on the very first link that comes up on Google. It says Pico W download CircuitPython as the website. Click on that, and on the right hand side it gives you all the details. You have CircuitPython 9.2.4. I'm going to download UF2 now. This is going to do exactly what it did before. Let me go to my downloads folder and drag that across. Where is it? Downloads. Here we are. So the very first one is CircuitPython and the second one is MicroPython. We're going to do exactly what we did before, but this time I'm going to drag and drop it because the first time I copied and pasted it. So again, I'm going to click on the first icon, click and hold it down. It's only 2.7 megabytes, roughly 2,710 kilobytes. So roughly 2.7 megabytes. I'm going to click and hold it down and drag this across. And once I have it on my Raspberry Pi Pico W, I'm going to let go. And then that thing is going to come up again, the Windows transfer dialogues thing. I'm going to let that finish. And once it finishes, it should disconnect and close this window here. Perfect. That's disconnected. Windows been closed. I'm going to be using Thonny to show how this works again. Again, this is completely free. You can download it for any operating system you have. So here is my Thonny window. Let me drag this across. And this time I'm going to do exactly the same thing again, but the options are going to be slightly different. So bottom right hand corner of the Thonny window, it says MicroPython because that's what I had last open. So I'm going to click on that. From the drop down list, I only need to click on the first one that says RP2040. That's Raspberry Pi 2040. The other options here are different microcontrollers that will work with the CircuitPython. So I'm going to click on that option. It's going to reload again the IDE, and I have CircuitPython, Raspberry Pi Pico W, and again to test it I'm going to use the same thing. Print. I'm going to do hello world 2 and I'm going to press play. It gives me the output down here. Everything is working perfectly fine. So that's how you set up the Raspberry Pi Pico W. The Pico is going to be exactly the same process, but instead of typing the W on Google when you search for stuff, you simply type Raspberry Pi Pico or type Pico UF2 MicroPython. So just a quick review. We saw how to set up MicroPython with the Raspberry Pi Pico W. We tested it in Thonny. Then we put CircuitPython on the same Raspberry Pi Pico W and tested it in Thonny again. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.